It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the Morning Star Drive, you know.
Hey guys, how's it going? It's Tuesday, July 13th. And this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So what is going on this wonderful Tuesday? We'll get some coronavirus updates, current news from around the world, and of course, looking into this week's scripture, the book of 1 Thessalonians. All right, guys, how are you doing today? Hope you guys are enjoying your week. Really thankful that you guys are joining us here on the Morning Star Drive. Gosh, I gotta tell you guys about this. I had this crazy dream on Saturday. For like 3 days before that, I was like really struggling with pre-dawn. It was like hard to get into prayer. And then on Saturday, I woke up, early at pre-dawn, like 3 something. And then I just fell back asleep. Okay, I fell back asleep. Yes, I fell back asleep. And then in my dream, I was in a house. You can feel it's your house. I was in my house. I looked outside. It's like a swamp outside. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then I look there's this bush and grass in my front porch, and there's like this what is it? A boa constrictor or an anaconda. It was one of those two, and it was like it already had food in its stomach, and it's crushing the food in its stomach. I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's snakes out there, and this is an anaconda. This is crazy. So then I go to check the door, to open the door, and right when I open the door, like there's water flooded into the house. So the water's up to my knees. And then the most gigantic anaconda, like a snake, huge, just slithers in. I'm like, whoa! I've never been so scared in my dream. I'm like, what? It just goes in. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And then there's another person with me. Me and my friend are like, what? You're wading through the water because it's up to your knees. You're trying to run, but of course you're slowing down. And then I see the anaconda. Like in my head, I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is their territory where they can, they move fast and everything." And then I see this huge anaconda coming towards me. And what I did was I was like, "Oh, I see my curtain." I take the curtain and I wrap it around, like I cover myself so that the anaconda can't see me. And then I was like, oh my gosh, please don't bite me, whatever it is. And then I look back out, and then the anaconda's gone. And then I run into another room, and then with this friend there. And then I woke up in this fear, and I looked at the time. It was like 4:50. I was like, I'm late. And then I got up, and I was in fear for pre-dawn. I was scared into doing pre-dawn. It was like, God, oh my goodness. So yeah, that was kind of a crazy thing that happened to me like on Saturday. I forgot to mention it yesterday, but yeah, I was just reminded of it. Somehow I was reminded of it. But either way, thanks for joining us here on the Morning Star Drive. Sorry to scare you all the way, this early in the morning. Just make sure to keep liking and commenting. I want to hear from you guys and see how you're doing. We have a new vlog tonight. I'm going to tell one of the ghost stories. Some stories about people's spiritual stories and stuff like that too, so that's pretty fun. And also, remember, Sunday edition. This week we are meeting Tuli, and she is from Australia. One of the first members there in Australia. Great interview. Learn about her history, her journey. Super fun, insightful. And hope you guys really enjoy it. So make sure to check out the Sunday edition for this week. And of course, last night we had the Monday night Zoom and the Patreon video. No, sorry. The video for the Monday night Zoom Bible study will be posted tonight. Right? Remember last week, guys, the first one, we had 150 people on our Zoom. So that's pretty crazy, right? So we are getting some good response. Tons of people from Taiwan and Malaysia, Korea, Japan. They're from everywhere. So super excited about this too. And what's even greater, some great news though, is I'm already hearing about people that have realized and passed from the last Monday night Zoom I did, right? Last time, the first session I did, it was for about 28 weeks, 27 weeks, around there. You guys take a look at over there. I did like 3 or 4 sections, and we finished times and a half and history and stuff like that too. So we were able to bring newcomers, and I was so happy. I know already just in the church I'm in right now that at least 2 are going to be passing. So that's exciting enough for me to have these Zoom Bible studies. All right, so let's get this show started on the road. Right? It is Tuesday. Who is our featured artist of the day? We got a brand new song. I'm so happy new songs are coming out. This is from Man and Groom from the Paper Music Associates in Korea. And this one is called Mangwon-dong Bonge. Right? Mangwon-dong is an area. Right? So Mangwon is the name of the region, I guess. Not the region. It's like a district, right? Mangwon is a name of the district, and Dong is like district name. So Mangwon-dong, and then Bonge is like lightning. So this song is called Mangwon-dong Bonge. So the lightning of Mangwon, I guess, right? So I it's a cool song, guys. You gotta love this. And then after that, we're gonna have Somebody Boys from America with the song Winner, and then last but not least, Kuma-chung from Japan with a song for fathers, and that's featuring Ranghi. So I hope you guys will enjoy this set. Really good set. I enjoyed making and listening to these ones too. So everyone, as we are in, what day is it already, guys? We're in like 43 days of the 70-day prayer condition. As you're doing this 70-day prayer condition, make sure that you keep these member artists in your prayers.
저게 나는 달라 왜 이렇게 느려 투저지렁 내장 같은 네 모습 좀 봐라 한숨 나나 베이스 더 없는 가라 넌 절대 못 따라오지 이 가라 캐스터 냈지만 넌 잡아 내게 스며든 주가 말씀하신 듯 빠르게 살려면 느리게 기도 또 하나 말씀은 너에게는 높 맡기는 이기는 이걸 못 느끼면 네 위치인적인 나락 악마 손잡은 넌 바라 다시 파스 빼가 뻔한 피스톨 들어봐라 짜프짜프 같았는데 네 실력은 딱 사무자장 배달만 네 얼굴에 못 뱉어냈지 내 랩핑은 할 자리 정확히 노린 집 같이 하는 사람 몰려오지 택배로 보낼게 하기스
Ever since I met you, I just feel like a winner. I don't wanna stop. SB, let's get it. Yeah. Every day I feel like I'm a winner. We just eating every time it's dinner. You're the realest trophy that I have. Everybody wishes what I have. I really wanna get to know you. Nothing feels like winning if we aren't together. I really wanna get to know you. When you are with me, everything is better. I really wanna get to know you. I take the time out just to show you. I don't need to pick petals off a flower just to say that I adore you. I chill with you till the sun goes down. When I'm with you, my world goes round. When you call, I come around. Even in the crowd, you're the only one I see. The others try to kiss my eye, just know you're for me. I hope they know they can't compete. Now my head is in the zone. When I'm with you, not alone. I never let you go. You're everything to me. Together we're not losing. Every day I feel like I'm a winner. We just eating every time it's dinner. You're the realest trophy that I have. Everybody wishes what I have. I really wanna get to know you. Nothing feels like winning if we aren't together. I really wanna get to know you. When you are with me, everything is better. It's special every time when
ていきなさいいつの間にか時が過ぎ大人になるけどその言葉がこんなにも今勇気をくれるよお父さんありがとう今の私があるのは心の奥で輝いてるあなたの愛があるからたくさん迷惑もかけたけれどいつもどこでも支えてくれたねあなたのもとに生まれてこれたこと本当に奇跡だお父さんありがとう今の私があるのは永遠に消えることのないあなたの愛があるから
And there you go. That is Kuma-chung from Japan with the song for fathers, and that's featuring Ranghi. Before that, the Sumney Boys from America with the song Winner, and of course, the feature artist of the day, brand new song by Man and Groom from PMA in Korean. That song is Mangwon-dong Bonge, or The Lightning of Mangwon. All right, so let's get into some coronavirus updates for today. In the world, there's 187.6 million cases, 4 million deaths, and the mortality rate drops down to 2.15%. Top 5 countries going by daily infection rates. We have India on top with 30.8 million cases, 408,000 deaths. We have Brazil, 19 million cases, 532,000 deaths. Russia, 5.7 million cases, 142,000 deaths. The UK, 5 million cases, 128,000 deaths. And of course, Indonesia staying in once again with 2.4 million cases, 65,000 deaths. Now let's take a look at daily infection rates. Indonesia is not on top, but they're second, very, very close to becoming number one, right? So here it is. India is 37,000 cases in a single day, and then Indonesia is 36,000 cases, the UK with 31,000, Russia 25, and then Brazil with 20,000 cases in a single 24-hour span. Over here in Southeast Asia, of course, Indonesia is at 36,000, Malaysia 9,100, meaning over 9,000 cases for 2 days straight, and then the Philippines with 5,900 cases. So let's get into some news for today, and I have some the top 3 news, and I also going to start adding some sports news. Mainly because some people are asking, like the guys are like, hey, maybe you should put some sports news in there. And yeah, of course, we are going to put sports news. So that is something that I want to add. All right. So let's start off with top 3 news for today. Of course, this is the important one. And I know that sports isn't as important as the rest of stuff in life, obviously, right? So, new infection. We're going to start with South Korea. New infections are above 1,000 for the 6th day straight, and cases start to rise in non-capital areas. So South Korea's daily new coronavirus cases rose by more than 1,000 for the 6th consecutive day, Monday, despite fewer tests over the weekend, as the Greater Seoul area, the hotbed for the recent spike in new infections, is placed under the toughest social distancing measures. Now, the country added 1,100 new COVID cases, including 1,063 local infections, raising total caseload to 170,000 cases. According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, the tally compares with 1,324 tallied the previous day. Now, South Korea set a record high for daily cases on Saturday with 1,378. And the country added one more coronavirus death, raising the death toll to 2,044. The fatality rate came to 1.21%. Now, starting Monday, the highest level of social distancing is being put in place for Seoul and the surrounding Gyeonggi province, which will run for 2 weeks. Now, for the past days, around 80% of the daily infections have been reported in the wider Seoul area, but non-Seoul areas like Busan have seen a steady rise in new infections. And among other restrictions, gatherings of more than 2 people are banned after 6 p.m., which is the strictest measure ever imposed by the country since its first reported coronavirus case in January 2020. Now, meetings of up to 4 people are allowed during the daytime, and the country had banned gatherings of more than 4 people for several months nationwide before lifting the restrictions for areas outside Seoul earlier this month. Now, entertainment establishments, including nightclubs and bars, are ordered to shut down in the capital area as well, while restaurants are allowed to have dining customers until 10 p.m. Now, weddings and funerals can only be attended by relatives, and demonstrations are restricted. So the speed of treadmills at gyms must be kept at 6 kilometers per hour or below. I'm not sure why they have that. And authorities warned that South Korea may report more than 2,000 daily cases later this month amid a spike in variant strains of the coronavirus. The number of Delta variant cases confirmed last week in the greater Seoul area was twice that of the Alpha variant, they added. And the country's inoculation program, meanwhile, has been slow over recent weeks. A total of 15.5 million people, or 30.4% of the country's 51.3 million population, have received the first shots of coronavirus vaccines, remaining almost unchanged from 29.8% tallied at the end of June. Now, the KDCA said 5.8 million people have been fully vaccinated, accounting for 11.4% of the population. And since the country began vaccinations on February 26th, a total of 402 deaths after vaccinations have been reported, while 95% of the 101,000 cases of side effects reported have been found to be mild symptoms. Now, of the newly confirmed domestic cases, 402 were from Seoul, 322 from the surrounding Gyeonggi province, and 51 were from the western port city of Incheon. Now, the southeastern port city of Busan reported 43 new cases, and the southeastern city of Daegu added 37 new patients, and new cases from South Chungcheong province also came to 43, and there were 37 additional imported cases. Right, so by country, Indonesia accounted for 14 cases, followed by the Philippines with 4 patients, right? But the total number of people released from quarantine after making full recoveries was 154,187, up 427 from a day earlier, right? So that is what's going on with the coronavirus, and we'll see what happens. They got 2 weeks of strict lockdown. Let's go into the second one in Peru. Peru is now extending the coronavirus state of emergency until the end of August. So as political uncertainty persists after June presidential elections, Peru has struggled to stem coronavirus infections. Peru has extended until the end of August a coronavirus-related state of emergency that allows the government to impose restrictions in an effort to stem infections. So interim President Francisco Sagasti and his government's resolution on Sunday extended the order, which was expected to be lifted on July 31st until the end of next month. And that means that restrictions, including a nighttime curfew in place since March last year, would continue. Guys, did you hear that? Nighttime curfew since March last year is continuing. So that's pretty crazy. Like Peru, they've struggled. They struggled to contain the surging coronavirus cases and deaths in recent months, with the country recording more than 2 million infections and more than 193,000 deaths since the pandemic began. And it's pretty crazy, guys, because Peru, it has like the highest death rate per capita, right, in the world. That's how bad it is, right? So the government organized a 36-hour coronavirus vaccine drive during the weekend in an effort to get Peruvians fully inoculated, and hundreds of people queued in the capital to get jabs. And man, it's pretty crazy, guys. So Peru remains gripped by political uncertainty as the country's electoral body has yet to officially confirm the results of hotly contested presidential elections last month. So we'll see what happens, right? But Peru, yes, in a bad situation right now, and they're continuing to the end of August in their restrictions and curfews. Last but not least, we have a heat wave in the U.S. Of course, it was in Canada, the U.S., and we reported about wildfires in Canada last week. And wildfires are raging in the western states as well as temperatures soar. The west of the United States regions are being hit by a heat wave that has brought record temperatures to several areas, and communities have been told to evacuate as firefighters struggle to battle the blazes in the extreme conditions. Already like 2 firefighters died in Arizona when their aircraft crashed while responding to a wildfire. And meanwhile, Las Vegas matched its all-time temperature high of 47.2 degrees Celsius on Saturday. Firefighters battling the many wildfires in the region say the air is so dry that much of the water dropped by aircraft to quell the flames evaporates before it reaches the ground. Tell me that's incredible. It comes just weeks after another dangerous heat wave hit North America in which hundreds of sudden deaths were recorded, many of them suspected of being heat-related, and the region experienced its hottest June on record according to the EU's Earth Observation Program, and experts say that climate change is expected to increase the frequency of extreme weather events, right? So that is what's going on over there in western United States. Actually, one of the fires, it doubled in size between Friday and Saturday. That's how bad it is, right? So the huge giant cloud of smoke and ash, which combines a dry heat generated, which basically generated its own lightning, right? So that's pretty crazy too, right? So that's the top 3 news of the day. I'm going to do a little bit of sports. There's some big stuff coming up in sports. Number 1 is Italy defeats England in shootouts in the Euro final, which is quite incredible. Yeah, England were up and running and urged on by a vast frenzy crowd. It was in England, and they scored first. Italy ties it up, and then they lost in shootout. So that's Italy takes the Euro Cup home for 2021. In Wimbledon news, Novak Djokovic beats Matteo Berrettini for his 20th Grand Slam title. So Djokovic won his 6th Wimbledon title to equal Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal's record of 20 men's Grand Slam victories after fighting back to beat Italy's Matteo Berrettini. The 34-year-old Djokovic, he won 6-7. 6-4, 6-4, 6-3 in front of a passionate and vocal crowd of 15,000 people. And last but not least, we have the NBA Finals. It's going on right now. Bucks get their first win, and they defeat the Suns in Game 3, and they're now down 2-1. Giannis Antetokounmpo, those of you guys don't know, he is like the... Probably he's already a 2-time MVP. He led all scorers with 41 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, and a steal. And he is actually only the 3rd player in NBA Finals history with a 40-point double-double in back-to-back games, joining LeBron James and Shaquille O'Neal. All right, so that's incredible. So we're hoping that it's going to become an even better a better finals, and they can tie it up in 2 days. All right, guys. So that is the news for today. Hope you guys really enjoyed that, which leads us into a more spiritual section. We have finished up the worldly news, and now it's time to get a little bit more spiritual, right? We got to get a little spiritual. So we're going to sing some praise songs, some new songs coming up on PEMD. Great job by the IETT music translation department. And we're going to listen first to Our Fruits. And then let's sing the songs of love, and of course, whenever, wherever. All right, so as one body of the Morning Star Drive, let's spend this time giving glory, honor, and praise to the Holy Trinity.
Come on, get up and run. Learn from the past. Use all we've learned and gain strength from it. Then we'll go on, extending our roots, growing our branches. that you would call yourselves true singers with that life. Are you not sons and daughters of the Almighty God? Let us all call on God, call the Holy Spirit, singing the new songs. Let us all sing songs of love. Let us all call on God, call the Holy Spirit, singing the new songs. Let us all sing whenever or wherever I may be, it's only the Lord that I see. Whether I close or open my eyes, I can't seem to get him off my mind. Oh, come to me, I heard him call. The Lord so great pleaded with me so small. And suddenly he stood by my side. With the Lord here by my side, worries of the world are gone. Thoughts of you, my Lord, rush into my mind. Whenever and wherever, it's only you I think about. When I close my eyes or open my eyes, you're the only one on my mind. Can't seem to get you off my mind. Oh, come to me, I heard him call. The Lord so great pleaded with me so small. And suddenly he stood by my side. With the Lord here by my side, worries of the world are gone. Thoughts of you, my Lord, rush into my mind. Whenever and wherever, it's only you I think about. When I close my eyes or open my eyes, you're the only one on my mind. Can't seem to get you off my mind. Thoughts of you, my Lord, rush into my mind. Whenever and wherever, it's only you I think about. When I close my eyes or open my eyes, you're the only one on my mind. Can't seem to get you off my mind. Thoughts of you, my Lord, rush into my mind. Whenever and wherever, it's only you I think about. When I close my eyes to get you off my mind. Thoughts of you, my Lord, rush into my mind. Whenever and wherever, it's only you I think about. When I close my eyes or open my eyes, you're the only one on my mind. Can't seem to get you off my mind.
And there you go. That was Whenever, Wherever. Before that was Let's Sing the Songs of Love. And of course, that first song was Our Fruits, one of the new songs that just came out with IETT. All right, guys, so let's get into the word study for today. And of course, it is Tuesday, which means our word study consists of the scripture from this week. And of course, it's 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, 12 to 24. Great verse, lots of good stuff in it. So let's kind of go into the book of 1 Thessalonians, okay? So we're gonna start off with who wrote the book, 1 Thessalonians, okay? So this, Apostle Paul, after he started the church in Thessalonica, he wrote this first letter to the believers within just a few months of leaving. Right? So in Acts, in the book of Acts, Luke recorded that Paul preached for 3 Sabbath days to the Jews in the local synagogues. That's in Acts chapter 17, verse 2. But most scholars believe Paul spent about 3 months rather than 3 weeks with the Thessalonians because he would have had to have been there long enough to receive more than one offering from the Philippian church. Right? And Philippians in 4:15-16 says that, he has to be able to receive more than one offering, and that's why he would have to be there for more than just 3 weeks. So Paul's ministry in Thessalonica obviously touched not only Jews, but Gentiles as well, because many Gentiles in the church had come out of idolatry, which was not a particular problem among the Jews of that time, right? And that's from 1 Thessalonians chapter 1, verse 9. So one thing that's quite interesting is actually 1 Thessalonians is actually the very first letter that Paul ever wrote. Actually, 1st and 2nd Thessalonians were his first 2 letters that he ever wrote and ever written in the New Testament. So that's quite interesting too. So it is the Apostle Paul that wrote these letters. Where is this place, right? So Paul first wrote his this first Thessalonians, his first letter to the church in Thessalonica from the city of Corinth, and this was around 51 A.D. Okay, so just a few months after having preached in Thessalonica on his second missionary journey, upon leaving Thessalonica under duress, Paul, Silas, and Timothy traveled to Athens by way of Berea. Now, but after a short time in Athens, Paul felt the need to receive a report from the newborn church in Thessalonica, so he sent Timothy back to serve and minister to the new believers there. Paul wanted to check on the state of the Thessalonians' faith, for fear that maybe false teachers might have infiltrated their number. However, Timothy soon returned with a good report, prompting Paul to pen 1 Thessalonians as a letter of encouragement to the new believers. And yes, knowing that the church at Thessalonica, this was on his second journey, right? So he had his first journey, and the second journey is where the church of Thessalonica was set up. So this is where Paul wrote it. He wrote it in Corinth, writing it to the Thessalonians. And of course, those you don't know, he was kind of forced out of Thessalonica for what he was doing, evangelizing and bringing many people to Christ. And then when he went to Corinth, he was worried about them, so he sent Timothy there. Now, why is this book of 1 Thessalonians so important, right? So this is another good question that we have to ask is, this is why it's so important, is because everyone wants to have some type of insight of what their future holds, right? So how much more when it comes to the end of the whole world, right? The last days or the end times. So 1 Thessalonians provides not only the Thessalonians, the church of Thessalonica, but also Christians today with the clearest biblical passage on the coming rapture of believers. And yes, of course, we're teaching 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16 to 18, which talks about a clear picture of what the rapture is supposed to look like. This event that is supposed to inaugurate the 7-year tribulation. So at the rapture, Christ will return for his people. The dead in Christ shall rise first, while those still living will follow close behind, and they will rapture into the sky, right? That's all in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. So it basically states that all believers will meet Jesus in the air to begin an eternity spent with the Lord. And we know that, the air is something that we teach as not literally the air, but of course, back in those days, it was something that everyone was looking for. What is the big picture of this book of First Thessalonians? Basically, Paul is impressed by the faithfulness of the Thessalonians in the face of persecution. So Paul wrote to encourage the Christians in that community with the goal that they would continue to grow in godliness. Right? Remember, guys, they were in constant persecution, but he was very impressed by it. So Paul knew that the people had been exposed to errant teaching from those in opposition to the way of Jesus Christ and the grace of God. And Paul also understood that unless the young church continued to mature in its faith, this danger would only increase over time. So he was very, very worried about this. And of course, with this in mind, Paul was teaching the people that any spiritual growth would ultimately be motivated by their hope in the ultimate return of Jesus, right? So that's supposed to be the ultimate motivating hope, right? All spiritual growth has to be motivated by this return that we will meet and will rise together with Christ in the air, right? So Paul was never interested in simply telling people to pull themselves up by their bootstraps and work hard, because he knew that what ultimately inspired change was a life of consistently walking in the power of God's Spirit. And this is really interesting and something that we have to learn from too, right? It's not just about working hard. You have to work hard and live consistently, but you couldn't do it with just the motivation of just work hard and do well. He knew that it considered a life of consistency, walking in the power of God's Spirit so that you feel it all the time, knowing God's power is there. You need that type of motivation, knowing that it's true. And so to a group of young Christians, like in Thessalonica, with questions and uncertainties, Paul offered the hope of Christ's return, providing both comfort in the midst of questions and motivation to godly living, especially amidst all the persecution and the oppression and the false teachings that they were going through over there in Thessalonica. So this was obviously a church that Paul held very dear to his heart. And that he was so worried about these new Christians that, even being forced out, he made sure that they were doing okay and answered all their questions. So it's good to know this background, especially when we're reading the book of First Thessalonians, that Paul gave the hope of Christ's return so that people will have something to look forward to, a motivation, and then also he answered their questions, right? And especially amidst all the persecution and all these errant teachings coming from people on the outside, and he comforted their hearts, right? Motivating them to live a godly life. So this is kind of like this background that we're looking at when it comes to the book of First Thessalonians. Hope you guys can read those two books. Super short, guys. They're very, very short. Like, look at First Thessalonians, only 5 chapters, right? And in First Thessalonians, we have so many things that we look at. Like, for instance, we look at it for the rapture in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16 to 18. This week's verses, like 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verses like 16 and 17 is about pray continuously, never stop giving thanks, right? Like, it's about prayer. When you get to 1 Thessalonians 5:23, it talks about the lesson on the body, soul, and spirit. May you be kept blameless in your body, soul, and spirit to the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. And you kind of get the theme, right? Everything is about the coming of the Lord Jesus Christ, the second coming, that all of them would meet, okay? So that is the word study for today. We're looking at the book of 1 Thessalonians. Hope it kind of opens your eyes a little bit more so you guys can look at this, look at the book in a different way, understanding it much better. Okay, so now that the word study is done, we're going to go into the song of choice for today. What is the song of choice for today, guys? Song of choice, we're going to go in on Tuesdays. I am doing some Korean music every Tuesdays. So we're going to go into this live performance. And this is one of my favorite singers in Korea. He's an old school singer. His name is Shin Seung-hoon, right? And he is someone that only the old people know. And in 2002, I started listening to some of his songs because of this movie that I really enjoyed. Those of you who haven't seen this movie, it's really funny and cool. It's called My Sassy Girl. Okay, My Sassy Girl, great movie. It was one of the most popular movies that came out, but this was the theme song for it. And the song was called I Believe by Shin Seung-hoon. But on this television show called Master of the House, very, very interesting because in the show, Shin Seung-hoon is on it with another actor. Those of you guys don't know is Lee Seung-gi, right? And I remember what was that on Netflix, there's that show called Vagabond, Lee Seung-gi, right? Very famous also, but I didn't know he was such a good singer. But if you guys listen to this, it is a live performance of Lee Seung-gi and Shin Seung-hoon with the song I Believe from the My Sassy Girl soundtrack. So I hope you guys will really enjoy this.
I believe 그댄 곁에 없지만 이대로 이별은 아니겠죠.
I believe 나에게 오는 길은 조금 멀리 돌아올 뿐이겠죠.
모두 지나간 그 기억 속에서 내가 나를 아프게 하며 눈물을 만들죠.
나만큼 울지 않기를 그대만은 눈물 없이나 편하게 떠나주기를.
언젠가 다시 돌아올 그대라는 거 알기에 난 믿고 있기에
기다릴게요. 난 그대여야만 하죠. 나 그댈 알기 전 이 세상도 이렇게 눈부셨는지.
그 하늘 아래서 이제 눈물로 남겨졌지만 이 자리를 난 지킬게요.
그대란 이유만으로 나에게는 기다림조차 충분히 행복하겠죠.
사랑한 이유만으로 또 하루가 지나가고 오는 길이 저도
기다릴게요. 난 그대여야만 하죠. 난 그대여야만 하죠.
And there you go. That was Lee Seung-gi and Shin Seung-hoon with the song live performance of I Believe from the My Sassy Girl soundtrack. That's from way back in the past when I first watched. I think that was like the second Korean movie I ever watched. What was the first one called again? I went to a theater to watch this in Los Angeles. It was called, what was it called? It was like an action movie, and it was really good. The first Korean movie that kind of got really, really popular, but I completely forgot it. But this was my second one, and I really enjoyed this one. One of my favorites is My Sassy Girl. But either way, I hope you guys really enjoyed that. We're going to go to the last section today, and of course, I am looking at what's going on around the world a lot. And there's this one person that caught my eye and is just really showing me what the world is getting into right now and how the world is kind of shifting. And you can kind of see, like, honestly, when I look at this, like, I'm not saying this is the reason why God is judging, but you can see that the world has turned so wrong to the point you're like, wait a second, how did it get to this point? Okay. And I'm not even talking about America here. I'm going to talk about the UK too. Okay. So I was watching these memes against this one guy, and all of a sudden this guy just says he's Korean. Okay, this dude named Oli London. I'm not sure if you guys have heard this guy. He's a social media influencer. He's on YouTube and Instagram. His name is Oli London, and he just came out as Korean. Okay, so he's this white dude from England. He wants to be Korean, so he got 18 plastic surgeries to make himself look more Korean. Okay, that's pretty crazy. So he gets gives himself smaller eyes, and he's got this crush, or his pop idol is Jimin from BTS, and he basically wants to be like him, and he's all his plastic surgeries and everything about him is so that he can become like Jimin. Now this is the crazy part, okay? So he said he's transitioning to resemble Jimin of BTS. And then he had this video that came out. It's crazy. And Koreans are going crazy about this too. Like they hate this guy. But he basically said that he's been unhappy with himself deep down for the last 8 years. And so he's had 18 plastic surgeries. Okay? Facelift, brow lift, temple lift, eye surgery, everything. Teeth were done as well. And then he said he looked at himself in the mirror and he said he's feeling really good for the first time in his life. He feels beautiful. And he loves the way he looks and feels happy. And he hopes people can respect his decision. Now, here's the interesting part that's kind of weird is he is attributing his happiness to the way he looks, right? Everything is 18 plastic surgeries, right? Everything is based on how he looks. And you see that the world is kind of coming into this place where it's instead of God, of knowing who you are, right, realizing your purpose, right, why you're created in this world and what your goal is, and how you have someone who loves you that deeply. Doesn't matter how much what you look like. He's instead attributed his happiness to the way he feels a certain way, so he has to look a certain way. So he basically says he's born in the wrong body, right? He says, and here's interesting. He says he doesn't identify as male or female, and he's in the middle. And guess what his pronouns are? So, we heard about these pronouns and stuff like that. So his pronouns is they and them, but guess what his other two pronouns are? His other two pronouns are Korean and Jimin. Like, that's his pronoun. His pronoun isn't like, hey, who is they or them? It is, who is Korean? Hey, look at Korean. Look at Jimin. Like, he's calling that his pronouns. And you can see why this pronoun argument gets really ridiculous, because now you can start making up any pronoun that you want. And his pronouns are Korean and Jimin. Right? And he says, a lot of people don't understand me. And the answer is, of course we don't. No one understands what the heck he's doing. Right? He identifies as Korean. And he says he looks Korean now, but when you look at him, guys, he does not look Korean. I'll leave a link in the description just so you can see what is happening. He says he feels Korean. He's not British anymore. So please don't refer to me as British, because I am now Korean. That is my culture. That is my home country. That's exactly how I look right now. And I also identify as Jimin. That's my Korean name, right? And he says, I know it's a bit confusing, right? And no one has ever come out as Jimin or Korean, but this is something that you guys know if you followed my journey for the last 8 years, right? So when you look at this guy, it's really crazy what he's doing to himself, right? More than $100,000 on plastic surgery, right? But, well, in 2018, he spent $100,000. They said it's past $200,000 right now. So he's making all this money just to transition and to become Korean. And it's really interesting because the reason why it was so, for me being a Korean, I am a Korean, but I don't want to even say the word identify, but I'm someone, I know that I'm Korean, born in Canada, and my culture is not Korean. I'm pretty, I'm going to tell you guys straight up, my culture is not Korean. I was not born in the Korean culture. I am not like the Korean style. I'm very Western style. So I'm just like, yeah, I can call myself Korean Canadian or Korean American, whatever you want to call that, right? Because I am Korean by ethnicity, but my culture and the way I am, I'm very, very American style, very, very Canadian style, right? Western. Which means I can understand if someone was thinking to themselves is like, because I'm a Korean born in America, which is very different. I am Korean, but I'm born in Canada, right? And born and raised in Canada and America. But this guy's born and raised in the UK. And all of a sudden he's like straight up like, no, I'm Korean now. And the answer is, now we've kind of like gotten into this place. It's really confusing for me too. That we're actually allowing people to do what they feel. Like, oh, I feel like this, so I'm going to be like that. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is not to rant about this, like, oh, what is this identity and like these pronouns. That's not the thing. The thing you get to see how far we've come, right? As a society, that we've gone so far that we've thrown out biological gender and we've thrown out like ethnicity and culture where people can be whatever they want. And for me, it's very disingenuous that we're telling people that we want to respect everyone, so that even if you were never born in that culture, or if you're not even Korean, but then now you can be Korean. Like, if that's true, if, like in America, they're thinking about doing reparations for the African Americans. But what if I identify as African American? Do I get reparations too? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really make sense to me how far the world has gone. That we're now accepting these things and saying that it's okay and that it's right. Like, I'm sure no one here, like, we're all looking at that. This is crazy. This is really crazy, but on top of it, it's crazy that we're not allowed to say that it's crazy because, people will cancel you and stuff like that too. It's so interesting to see how far the world has come and how far, like, extreme to the other side we're going, where religion and Christianity and these things that are very, very normal, like religious freedoms and being able to believe in certain things, like even in Providence, it's not like we believe in the Bible and that's why we don't believe that homosexuality is right. Right? That's just the way that's every Christian, right? Almost every, like probably 90% of the Christians are going to think this way because that's the way we believe. And it's okay, but we're not like protesting against like homosexuality. We're not going there trying to, beat up these people. They can live the life. They have the choice to live how they want, but we don't agree with it, right? And it's something that we have to think about is, it would be just the same as anything else we consider as sin. We wouldn't agree with someone living a lifestyle of sin, of any sin that's according to the Bible, because that's what we adhere to. And that should be fine as long as we're not like hindering other people's freedoms. But yet here we are. Like, the one thing I love about God, when I think about God even more, how great and loving He is that even though He knows truth and even though He knows what is great and what is right, it's not like He sits there and forces you that you have to love me or believe or live in this certain way. There's no force. If there was absolute force in this, don't you think that every person that was a sinner would be judged instantaneously so that they would force them to come to God? If God really wanted to do things by force, that every person that did like live like then I find God so loving and amazing that even though He's against God doesn't want homosexuality, why wouldn't He just judge all of them? Like right now, boom, and see, I told you it's wrong. But no, God gives free will. Free will is part of our life. That is amazing love. You can choose the way you want, right? You have free will. And I want you to love me because you truly love me more than anything else. And when I was looking at this, it's like, wow, God's love is so amazing and so big. But for me, I'm just like, wow, like how far are we going? And when you look at this pandemic, it's really scary how far this is going. That, once again, I talked about today about Korea, 1,000 cases for 6 days straight, and it's going into lockdown starting yesterday. Went into lockdown, right? I was really like, wow, God's heart can be seen through this pandemic. Like, you can see it of how much pain that He's been going through. And the reason why I'm saying, well, why would you have to do it through making other people suffer? Well, put it this way. I know that, our parents, like my parents were old school, because they're born in the 40s, right? They're the same age as Sunseem. My dad's almost the same age as Sunseem, like 2 years apart. And interesting thing is, like, when my dad would never just hit me or spank me, it would have to build up. All the disobedience, all the bad things I did, they all build up to a certain point. And then, I get spanked to deter me from doing that again. And on top of it, because, I know my dad's not doing it because he hates me. He does it because he loves me. It's like, well, how do you hit someone that you love? You have no choice at a certain point, or you're going to see their life go down a really bad road. And you don't want the people that you love to go through it. And they know that at one point, this might be the only way to do it, or the only way that this person is going to really get it in their heads. Right? It's true. That's why psychologically, yes, people do respond to love. They do. But there's a certain point where people are so stubborn, or people that have gone so extreme, that the only thing that they respond to is shock, like something really extreme. And I thought to myself, like, yeah, like even my parents, I know that they don't enjoy spanking me, but I do know that it's almost like all the pain that we put them through comes out in this one shot. And it's like, oh my goodness. And I only realized that later in life. And I realized that, yeah, sometimes your parents have to do it to set you on the right path again, to restart you. And it's kind of like, how many times have we seen a pandemic? Once every 100 years, guys. It's 100 years. The last big pandemic in the world, like at this magnitude, was the Spanish influenza, which was in like 1918 or something along that line, somewhere during that time, which is literally 100 years ago, right? That's like 6-7 generations later. 6-7 generations in the past, 8 generations in the past, if you think about that. 30, 60, 90, yeah, it's like 6-7 generations. And you see that sometimes God has to set us back on the right track, and we have to realize once again how much we need to come to God. And it's really frightening and scary, but you have to realize that sometimes all of this is necessary, not just at the world scale, but think about the individual scale. Look at the times that we've really not done well and really failed, and we'll be thankful in the future that we were corrected more than anything else. And I think the most important thing is when we recognize that judgment is correction, and judgment is really love more than anything else, because he doesn't want to see people go down the wrong direction. And I really, really hope that, I know that a lot of people during this time of the pandemic have had a lot of thoughts about themselves and what they should be doing. And I think that's something that we have to really think about too. It's time that we have to realize, yes, we have to straighten ourselves out, look at the things we're not doing well, and make ourselves better, right? So I hope it's something that it can make us think even more deeply when we look at just the extent of where the world is going. And I only talked about this guy, Oli London, because it affects me. This guy says he's Korean, and I'm like, what do you mean you can't just be Korean and give yourself a pronoun of Korean? Korean's not a pronoun. Korean is it's a culture, it's a country, right? It's a people. You can't use that as your It's so weird how it is. It just bothers me so much that when I looked at it, it's like, wow, God, it's so true how far the world has come, that the world is in need of judgment. And you couldn't imagine whenever God judges how much it hurts God, but there's no other way for the people to listen and come back to him, right? So that's kind of one of the thoughts that I've been going through and I've been thinking about. Hope that's something that can make you think a little bit more deeper too. All right, guys? So that is the last segment for today on this wonderful Tuesday. Hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day. And that means I hope to see all of you guys tomorrow on the Wednesday Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone,